So, Drew, I'm going to begin a place that you normally are not, Instagram. I recently posted that you were joining us for our studio coverage of Sharks, and somebody actually replied on there. Her name is Christina Marlowe.
Oh, the great Christina Marlowe.
Yeah, so you are familiar. Okay.
I don't know who Christina is.
It's the actual Christina, and all she said was, Drew, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. There were 6 of them. And I responded, I said, you didn't need that many exclamation points, all right? But here's what I'm getting to. Her final comment here, I thought, is a conversation point. She said, I disagree. He's not only a great guy, I learned the rules of the game from his broadcasting during Sharks games when Patrick and I were first dating. I didn't know an icing from an offside. He'd explain why plays were good and bad, what they could have done, and he was never afraid to criticize when appropriate. In fact, I'm going to add a few more exclamation points, and then she put about 14 of them here. I just want to know, going back to your beginnings as a Shark broadcaster, forget being a coach, did you ever realize like the responsibility you had in this market of, quite honestly, teaching people the game?
Yes, and it wasn't that I was really ahead of the curve on that. It was George Kingston, who was the very first coach of the Sharks. One of the things that we did the very first year was we did a couple of these things called Break the Ice, where companies would come out and we would put the people on the ice and I would take them through a practice. You know, some people never skated before,
right,
and never known the game before. Elise Soul, who was working in our Sharks Foundation at the time, she was from New York and she could skate. She was a really good skater. Like at the time, a better skater than most of the guys we had on the team at that time. But George always maintained that we had a responsibility to help build the game and grow the game and to teach the game. So George was the guy that put me above to make sure we did that all the time. And we went out as coaches and we did that. We did Sharks University, where we just held classroom stuff. And the one thing that I always thought about when I started broadcasting was, and this was again with George, why? You got to tell people the why. It's like coaches will tell you now that you have to tell players the why. You used to be able to tell players, just go do it. But now they're more sophisticated, they're smarter, and so are fans. Fans follow, especially hockey. Hockey's a game that you have to follow.
Yeah.
You have to watch it. So I did have that in my head all the time, that I had to teach the game, teach the game, teach the game. And one of the actually disappointing things about broadcasting in Canada is that the people you work for don't put that emphasis on it. They don't think you have to do it as much. And that was one of the things that was really hard for me to get around in Edmonton. But yeah, so, long story short, yes, I did. And that was all because George Kingston always put it in my head. We are here in a new market, a non-traditional market, and to help grow the game, we got to teach the game.